200 years had passed since humanity left Earth in exile. Now Empress Nyoung Lee stood on the observation deck of the flagship Eternal Return as it dropped out of hyperspace in the Sol system. Before her stretched the blue marble that had given birth to humanity, looking exactly as it had when their ancestors were forced to leave. But everything else had changed. The space around Earth was filled with ships from 1,000 different worlds. Scarix battlecruisers flew alongside delicate Zentani art vessels. Massive Kalani research ships shared the void with small Mokari trading craft. All had come to witness humanity's return home. "Your Majesty," said Grand Admiral Minho Yoon, approaching with the day's reports, "the restoration teams have confirmed that Earth's ecosystem is completely healthy. The Galactic Council kept their word. They didn't damage the planet during our absence." "That's something, at least," Nyoung replied. She was the great-granddaughter of the leaders who had built the Outer Reach Alliance, and she had grown up on stories of the green world their people had lost. "The Council representatives are waiting in the New Geneva Conference Center," Admiral Minho continued. "What's left of them, anyway?" Nyoung almost felt sorry for the remnants of the old Galactic Council. The Vorthak Empire was gone, absorbed peacefully into the hegemony when their own people chose human leadership over their ancient rulers. The Kalani Federation had become the Kalani Republic and requested full integration with the Terran systems. Of the 12 species that had originally voted to exile humanity, only 3 still maintained independent governments, and even they were here not as equals, but as petitioners hoping to join the civilization that humanity had built. "Let's go meet them," Nyoung decided. "It's time to finish what began 2 centuries ago." The conference center in New Geneva had been restored to look exactly as it had when humanity last lived on Earth. But the people gathering in it represented changes that would have been impossible to imagine back then. Chief historian Sang Woo Choi was documenting everything. This moment would be remembered forever, the day when the exiled returned as rulers of the galaxy they had been cast out from. "The irony is perfect," he said to his recording device as he watched the representatives. "Take their seats. They sent us away to keep us from interfering with their civilization. Instead, they gave us the freedom to build something that made their civilization irrelevant." The 3 remaining independent council species sat at a small table, looking uncomfortable and out of place. Across from them sat the leaders of the Terran hegemony, humans, yes, but also Scarix, Zentani, Zerani, Kalani, and dozens of other species working together as one government. Supreme Chancellor Young Hee Park called the meeting to order. She was the elected leader of the Hegemony Senate, chosen by representatives from over 10,000 worlds. "Distinguished delegates," she began, "we are here to discuss the future of galactic civilization. 2 centuries ago, your predecessors made a decision that changed the course of history. Today, we deal with the consequences of that decision." Elder, Priest Zethmar of the Altarian theocracy spoke first. His people were one of the few remaining independent civilizations, and their desperation showed in every word. "Great Empress," he said, addressing Nyoung with a title she had never claimed, "we come before you seeking forgiveness for the mistakes of our ancestors. The Altarian people had no part in the decision to exile humanity. We were not even council members at the time." Nyoung exchanged glances with Chancellor Young Hee. This was typical of the remaining independents. They all claimed they hadn't been responsible for the exile, even though their governments had supported it. "Elder Zethmar," Young Hee replied calmly, "we're not here to assign blame for the past. We're here to discuss the future. What do your people want?" "Membership in the Terran hegemony," Zethmar replied immediately. "Full integration with your systems. We offer our entire civilization to serve the greater good of galactic unity." The second delegate, Trade Minister Velkoth of the Commercial Union, nodded eagerly. "The Union seconds this request. Our economic systems, our trade networks, our accumulated wealth, everything we have built over millennia, we offer to the hegemony." The third delegate, General Morthak of the warrior clans, was more direct. "My people have always respected strength. You have proven your strength by building an empire that surpasses all others. The clans request the honor of serving in your Military forces. Na Young listened to their requests with a mixture of sadness and amusement. These were the descendants of the beings who had considered humanity too primitive to exist in their galaxy. Now they were begging to become part of what humanity had created. Your requests are noted, Chancellor Young He said diplomatically. But joining the hegemony is not about serving us. It's about working together to build something better than any of us could create alone. She activated a holographic display showing the structure of hegemony government. Every species that joins us gets full representation in the Senate. Every world gets to vote on policies that affect them. Every citizen gets the same rights and opportunities regardless of their origin. Elder Zethmar looked confused. But surely humanity, as the founding species, maintains ultimate authority. Humanity has influence because we've earned trust, Young He explained. But we don't rule the hegemony. We participate in it. Last month, a Zerani scientist was elected to head our technology development program. Our current military academy is run by a Scarix warrior. The Chief Justice of our Supreme Court is a Zentani philosopher. This was difficult for the old council species to understand. They were used to hierarchies where one species dominated others. The idea of genuine equality between different peoples was foreign to them. How do you maintain unity without central control? General Morthak asked. Admiral Minho answered this one. Unity doesn't come from control. It comes from shared purpose. Every species in the hegemony benefits from our success, so every species works to ensure that success. Na Young decided it was time to address the larger issue. The truth is, she said, standing and walking to the window that looked out over Earth's restored cities. We don't need you to join us. The hegemony is already the most successful civilization in galactic history. We have more worlds, more resources, more advanced technology, and stronger military forces than any empire that has ever existed. The three delegates looked stricken. If humanity didn't need them, what was their future? But, Na Young continued, turning back to them, we want you to join us, not because you bring us strength, though you do. Not because you offer us resources, though you do. We want you to join us because every species has something unique to contribute, and the galaxy is better when everyone can reach their full potential. She gestured to the mixed group of hegemony leaders. 2 centuries ago, you saw diversity as weakness. You thought different species couldn't work together effectively. You were wrong. Diversity is our greatest strength because it gives us more ways to solve problems, more perspectives to consider, more possibilities to explore. Elder Zethmar spoke quietly. What you've built is remarkable. It's everything we once claimed to want. Peace, prosperity, cooperation between species. But we achieved none of it in thousands of years of trying. You achieved it in 2 centuries. How? Chancellor Young He smiled. You tried to build unity by making everyone the same. We built unity by celebrating how everyone is different. You tried to maintain order through control. We maintain order through cooperation. You saw other species as competitors or subjects. We see them as partners. The meeting continued for hours, working out the details of integration. The 3 remaining independent civilizations would join the hegemony, but not as conquered territories or grateful subjects. They would join as equal partners, their people given the same rights and opportunities as everyone else. As the formal ceremonies concluded, Na Young walked alone through the restored streets of Seoul. The city looked much as it had when her ancestors lived here, but the people walking its streets came from dozens of different worlds. A group of human children played with young Scarix in a neighborhood park. A Zentani artist was painting a mural on a building wall, while Makari engineers discussed improvements to the city's infrastructure. Kalani scientists shared a meal with human researchers at a sidewalk cafe. This was what the Galactic Council had feared when they exiled humanity, a mixing of species that would threaten their established order. They had been right to fear it, but not for the reasons they thought. The mixing of species hadn't created chaos. It had created something beautiful. Chief Historian Sang Woo found her there, watching the sunset over the city, where humanity's journey into the stars had begun. Any regrets, Your Majesty? He asked. Na Young considered the question seriously. About the exile? No. If they hadn't forced us to leave, we might have become just another member species in their council. Limited by their rules and their small thinking, the exile made us free to become something greater, and about ruling the galaxy. We don't rule it, she corrected gently. We help it rule itself. There's a difference. As the stars appeared in Earth's sky, Na Young could see the lights of ships from 1,000 worlds. Tomorrow, representatives from those. With the Nixari threat eliminated, the old galactic order began to crumble like a house built on sand. Emperor Wusung Choi stood in the Grand Council chamber of New Terra, the capital world of what was now being called the Terran hegemony. The name had evolved naturally as more and more species requested to join the Federation. The chamber was designed very differently from the old Galactic Council building. Instead of separate platforms that kept species apart, there were curved rows of seats where representatives from hundreds of worlds sat together. A Scarix warrior might sit next to a delicate Zentani diplomat, with a human mediator helping them communicate. Your Majesty, said Trade Minister Eun Park, approaching with her daily report. The Vorthak Empire has officially dissolved. The last 3 sectors have voted to join the hegemony. Wusung nodded calmly, though inside he felt amazed. The mighty Vorthak Empire, which had ruled a quarter of the galaxy for thousands of years, no longer existed. Their subjects had simply voted to leave and join humanity's growing alliance. What about their military? He asked. Most of their fleet. Commanders have requested integration into the Hegemony Defense Force, replied Admiral Min Ho Yoon, who now commanded forces spanning over 1,000 sectors. They're tired of the old ways. They want to be part of something that actually works. The old galactic civilizations were falling apart for a simple reason. They had been held together by fear and tradition, not by genuine cooperation. When a better option appeared, their people naturally chose it. The Kalani are different, Yoon continued. They're not dissolving, but they're changing. Chancellor Veltor has requested a formal alliance treaty. This was significant. The Kalani Federation had been the most technologically advanced civilization in the galaxy. For them to seek an alliance rather than trying to compete showed how much the balance of power had shifted. What are they offering? Wusung asked. Full technology sharing, Admiral Minho replied. Their advanced energy systems, their manufacturing techniques, their scientific databases. In exchange, they want access to our quantum tunnel network and representation in the Hegemony Senate. Wusung considered this carefully. The old Galactic Council would never have allowed such an arrangement. They kept their best technology secret from each other, even among allies. But the hegemony worked differently. Accept their proposal, he decided. But make it clear that technology sharing goes both ways. They give us their knowledge and we give them ours. All of it? Yoon asked, surprised. All of it, Wusung confirmed. That's how we got strong, by sharing everything with our allies. The Kalani are smart enough to understand that. Across the galaxy, the Terran hegemony was transforming civilization in ways both large and small. Trade Minister Eun Park had revolutionized galactic commerce by creating a new economic system based on contribution rather than conquest. Instead of the old system where powerful species took resources from weaker ones, the hegemony rewarded worlds based on what they added to the alliance. A small planet with skilled craftsmen could become wealthy by trading their goods throughout the quantum tunnel network. A resource-rich world could prosper by sharing their materials with manufacturing centers. The key was that everyone benefited. There were no more subject races or tribute worlds. Every species that joined the hegemony became a full partner with voting rights in the Senate. The economic reports are remarkable, Eun told a gathering of sector governors. Productivity has increased by 300% in former council territories since they joined us. Trade volume has increased by even more. Governor Sangmin Kim of the former Vorthak sector raised his hand. How is that possible? We're using the same people, the same resources. It's the same people, Eun agreed. But they're not doing the same jobs. Under the old system, most species were limited to specific roles. The Vorthak made warriors and administrators. The subject races provided labor and resources. Nobody could change their role. She activated a holographic display, showing the sector's new economy. Now we let people do what they're best at, regardless of their species. That Makari engineer who was forced to work in the mines? She's now designing starship engines. The Zarani who was just a factory worker? He's leading our new energy research program. And they're happy with these changes? Asked another governor. See for yourself, Yunjung replied, showing job satisfaction surveys. Productivity isn't just up because people are working harder. It's up because they're working on things they actually care about. This was perhaps humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the idea that everyone had potential that could be developed. The old civilizations had seen species as fixed in their roles. Humans saw them as capable of growth and change. But not everyone was happy with the new order. In the remains of the Silvani collective, a group of elder trees plotted resistance to human expansion. They spread like a plague, hissed Elder Mordain, his ancient bark scarred with age. First, they infect the weak species with their ideas of cooperation. Then they convince entire civilizations to abandon traditions that have worked for millennia. What do you propose? Asked Elder Velthar, younger but equally bitter about the changes. The humans have a weakness, Mordain replied. They trust too easily. They believe everyone can be reasoned with. We will show them that some conflicts can only be solved through strength. The Silvani had kept their most advanced military technology secret, even from their council allies. Ancient weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. Bioweapons that could wipe out species. They had never used these weapons because they had never been desperate enough. Now they were desperate. Defense Coordinator Byung-ho Kim was reviewing security reports when the first Silvani attack came. It wasn't against a military target, it was against New Harmony, a peaceful world where dozens of species lived together in one of the hegemony's most successful integration projects. Casualties? Byung-ho asked grimly as the reports came in. Minimal, replied his aide, Lieutenant Colonel Yu Jin. Their bioweapon was designed to target the original inhabitants, but it didn't account for the medical improvements we've made. Our enhanced immune systems fought off the plague. And the other species on the planet? Protected by the same medical technology we share with all hegemony citizens. The Silvani didn't know we'd been upgrading everyone's biology to handle the harsh conditions in the outer spiral. Byung-ho almost smiled. The Silvani had made the same mistake everyone else made when fighting the hegemony. They assumed each species still had the same capabilities they'd had centuries ago. They didn't realize that humanity's greatest weapon was their ability to improve everyone they worked with. What's our response? Yujin asked. We don't respond, Byung-ho said calmly. We demonstrate. Within hours, a hegemony fleet appeared, in the Silvani home system. But instead of attacking, they did something unexpected. They began rescuing Silvani civilians from the chaos that the Elders' desperate actions had created. The Silvani elders had been so focused on attacking the hegemony that they hadn't noticed their own people were suffering. Younger Silvani who disagreed with the elders' actions were being punished. Resources were being diverted from civilian needs to military projects. This is Admiral Hai Wan Park of the Terran hegemony, came the broadcast to the planet. We are here to offer assistance to any Silvani citizens who wish to relocate to hegemony territory. You will be given full citizenship rights and protection under our laws. Thousands of young Silvani took the offer. They loaded their families onto hegemony ships and left their homeworld behind. Within days, the Silvani resistance movement lost most of its support. Elder Mordain found himself ruling over a nearly empty world, his ancient authority abandoned by his own people. Why? He asked one of the few Silvani who remained loyal to him. Because they offered us something you never did, the younger Silvani replied sadly. Hope. The failed Silvani attack marked the end of organized resistance to the hegemony. The old galactic powers had tried military force, economic pressure, and even desperate terrorism. Nothing worked because the hegemony offered something the old order never could, a chance for everyone to become better than they had been before. As reports of the Silvani integration reached Emperor Wu Sung, he felt a deep satisfaction. Not because he had won another victory, but because more people were now free to reach their potential. Your Majesty, Trade Minister Yoon Jung approached with a data tablet. We've received formal requests for hegemony membership from over 200 more worlds this week. Any from the core systems? He asked. Yes, sir, including 3 former Kalani Federation capitals and the old Vorthak homeworld itself. Woo-sung looked out at the stars visible through his office window. Somewhere, out there was Earth, the blue world humanity had been forced to leave 2 centuries ago. Soon they would return home. But they would return not as exiles, but as leaders of a galactic civilization that had grown beyond anything the old council had ever imagined. The galaxy belonged to those who could unite it, not those who tried to control it. And humanity had learned, better than anyone else, how to help others become their best selves. The Nexari came from beyond the galaxy like a swarm of angry insects. Their ships were dark, organic-looking things that moved in perfect coordination. They appeared at the edge of council space without warning and began destroying everything in their path. Fleet Admiral Jae-sung Kim watched the emergency broadcasts from his command center in the outer spiral. The images were terrible. Kalani colonies burned under Nexari weapons. Vorthak battle fleets were torn apart by enemies that seemed to anticipate every move. Sir, his communications officer, Lieutenant Hai-jin, called out. We're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. It's marked as priority emergency. Jae-sung almost laughed. The same council that had exiled humanity a century and a half ago was now calling them for help. Put it through. The holographic display showed Emperor Vorthak himself, the same species that had led humanity's exile, though this was clearly a descendant of the original ruler. The mechanical being's usual arrogance was replaced by desperate worry. Unknown forces in the outer spiral, the Emperor began. The galaxy faces a threat, unlike anything we have encountered. The Nexari invasion fleets are destroying our worlds. Our traditional defenses are ineffective against their coordinated attacks. Jae-sung exchanged glances with his staff. The Emperor didn't even know he was talking to humans. We request immediate assistance from any civilizations capable of providing military support, the Emperor continued. In return, the Galactic Council offers full membership and access to all our advanced technologies. The transmission ended. Jae-sung's bridge crew was silent for a moment. Should we respond, sir? Lieutenant Hai-jin asked. Oh, we'll respond. Jae-sung smiled. But first, get me Supreme Chancellor In-ho Lee. It's time to introduce the galaxy to the Terran Federation. Supreme Chancellor In-ho Lee was the elected leader of what had once been called the Outer Reach Alliance. Over the decades, as more species joined their confederation and their territory expanded, they had renamed themselves the Terran Federation. Not because humans ruled it, but because the human homeworld Earth had become a symbol of their shared struggle against those who had dismissed them. The Council is desperate, In-ho said during their conference call. Their fleets are losing every battle. The Nexari fight like a single organism. When one ship moves, they all respond instantly. The Council species can't coordinate like that because they don't trust each other. What do we know about these Nexari? Asked General Soo-jin Cho, commander of the Federation's military forces. Our intelligence suggests they're from another galaxy entirely, replied Director Yang, who despite her age remained the Federation's spy master. They seem to be a collective intelligence. Every individual is connected to every other individual. Like a hive mind, Jae-sung mused. That explains their coordination advantage. The question is, In-ho said, do we help the people who exiled us? It was General Soo-jin who answered. We don't help them. We help the billions of innocent beings on those worlds. Besides, if the Nexari destroy the core civilizations, they'll come for us next. And, added Jae-sung with a grin, this is our chance to show the galaxy what we've become. The Kalani homeworld of Keelan Prime was under siege when the Federation fleet arrived. General Soo-jin commanded from the bridge of the massive dreadnought Determination, named after Ji-woo-nam's famous ship from decades past. Fleet composition report, she ordered. 200 dreadnoughts, 500 cruisers, 800 destroyers, and 2,000 support vessels, reported her tactical officer. All ships are fully crewed with mixed species teams. Soo-jin smiled. The Federation had more ships in This one fleet than most Council species had in their entire navies. What's the enemy's strength? Approximately 1,000 Nexari vessels surrounding the planet. They're in a standard siege formation. The Nexari had been having an easy time with Council forces because they could predict their enemies' moves. Council species had been using the same battle tactics for thousands of years, never changing because they had never needed to. But the Federation had spent a century and a half learning to fight in the dangerous outer spiral. They had developed new tactics, new strategies, and most importantly, the ability to adapt quickly to new situations. Begin attack pattern Delta 7, Sujin ordered. The Federation fleet moved like a living thing. Ships broke into small groups that attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. When the Nexari tried to coordinate a response to one group, another group would strike from an unexpected angle. But the real surprise came when the Federation ships started using the quantum tunnel network in the middle of battle. One moment a Federation cruiser would be engaging Nexari ships on one side of the planet. The next moment it would emerge from a tunnel behind the enemy fleet. The Nexari had never encountered anything like it. Their hive mind was excellent at coordinating responses to predictable threats, but the Federation's tactics were completely outside their experience. Within 6 hours, the siege of Keelan Prime was broken. The Nexari fleet retreated in confusion, leaving behind hundreds of destroyed ships. On the surface of Keelan Prime, the silver-skinned Kalani who had once dismissed humans as primitives watched the sky in amazement as Federation ships pursued their fleeing enemies. "Who are they?" asked Chancellor Veltor, the Kalani leader. "Unknown, sir," replied his military aide. "Our databases don't match their ship designs or their tactics, but they're definitely not Nexari." Supreme Chancellor In-Ho Lee's face appeared on the communication screen in the Kalani Command Center. Beside him stood Admiral Haiwan Park and Director Yang. "Greetings, Chancellor Veltor," In-Ho said politely. "I am Supreme Chancellor In-Ho Lee of the Terran Federation. We received your distress call and came to assist." The Kalani stared at the human face on the screen. Something about the name Terran seemed familiar, but he couldn't place it. "We are grateful for your assistance," Veltor replied carefully. "But forgive me, I don't recognize your civilization. The Terran Federation is not in our galactic databases." In-Ho smiled. "That's because you knew us by a different name. We used to be called the Outer Reach Alliance. Before that, we were simply humanity and our allies." The color drained from Veltor's silver features. "Humanity? But humans were exiled over a century ago. The Council records show you went extinct." "Reports of our extinction were greatly exaggerated," In-Ho replied pleasantly. "We've been rather busy in the outer spiral, building an empire, making friends, developing new technologies. The usual things that primitive species do when left to their own devices." Admiral Haiwan Park stepped forward. "Chancellor Veltor, the Nexari threat is not over. Our intelligence suggests they have a primary base somewhere beyond our galaxy. As long as that base exists, they can send more invasion fleets." "What do you propose?" Veltor asked weakly. "We're going to find their home and eliminate the threat at its source," Haiwan replied. "But first, we need to secure this galaxy. Are there other worlds under attack?" "Dozens," Veltor admitted. "The Vorthak Empire has lost 3 entire sectors. The Sylvani Collective is calling for evacuation of their border worlds." "Send us the coordinates," In-Ho ordered. "We'll handle it." Over the following weeks, Federation fleets appeared at every major battle in Council space. Each time they arrived just as the local defenses were about to collapse. Each time they drove off the Nexari with tactics the enemy couldn't predict or counter. The galaxy watched in amazement as the descendants of species they had dismissed as worthless demonstrated military capabilities that exceeded anything the great civilizations had ever achieved. But the real shock came when Admiral Haiwan Park led a fleet of Federation ships through a massive quantum tunnel that opened near the galactic edge. They disappeared for 3 weeks. When they returned, they brought news that changed everything. "The Nexari threat has been eliminated," Haiwan announced to the emergency session of the Galactic Council. "We tracked them to their extragalactic base and destroyed their entire civilization. They will not be returning." Emperor Vorthak stared at the human admiral in disbelief. You destroyed an entire extragalactic empire? It wasn't easy, Haiwan replied. But when you've spent over a century learning to survive in impossible conditions, you develop certain capabilities. The chamber was silent. Every delegate was trying to process what they had just learned. The primitive species they had exiled had not only survived but had become the most powerful military force in the galaxy. What do you want? Emperor Vorthak asked quietly. Supreme Chancellor Inho stood up slowly. Behind him, holographic displays showed the extent of the Terran Federation. Thousands of worlds, dozens of species, fleets that dwarfed anything the Council had ever seen. What we wanted a century and a half ago, Inho replied. Recognition, respect, and the right to exist in this galaxy as equals. And if we refuse? Asked a Sylvani delegate. Inho smiled sadly. You're not in a position to refuse. But we're not conquerors, we're builders. Join us and help us create something better than what came before. The age of the old council is over. The age of the Federation has begun. The revelation was complete. Humanity had returned to the galactic stage, but not as the primitive species that had been exiled. They had returned as the leaders of an empire that now surpassed all others. President Mi Young-shin walked through the corridors of Unity Station, the massive space station that served as the capital of the Outer Reach Alliance. 100 years had passed since the Great Exile, and the station buzzed with activity from dozens of different species. The corridors were designed to accommodate everyone, wide passages for the large Scarix warriors, water-filled tubes for the aquatic Zentani, special lighting zones for the energy-sensitive Zirani. Somehow humanity had figured out how to make it all work together. Madam President, called Admiral Seung-ho Park as he approached. He was the great-grandson of the Admiral So-min Park who had led the evacuation from Earth. The new fleet is ready for your inspection. Mi Young nodded. The fleet was something special, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The ships were smaller than the massive vessels the core civilizations favored, but they were also faster, more flexible, and much smarter. They walked to the observation deck overlooking the main shipyard. Hundreds of vessels floated in the construction bays, each one a masterpiece of combined technology. Human engineering merged with Zirani energy systems, Scarix armor plating, and Mokari mechanical improvements. They're beautiful, Mi Young said, watching a newly completed cruiser perform its test flight. The ship moved with a grace that the blocky vessels of the core worlds could never match. More than beautiful, Admiral Seung-ho replied. They're revolutionary. Each ship has a mixed crew from 5 different species. The Zentani handle navigation through the quantum tunnels. The Zirani manage the energy systems. The Mokari keep everything running perfectly. The Scarix provide security and tactics. And humans coordinate it all. Mi Young smiled. This was what the Galactic Council had never understood. They saw diversity as a problem to be managed. Humans saw it as strength to be multiplied. Any word from Director Yang? She asked. She's due. Back from her latest mission today, Seung-ho replied. Her intelligence network has been providing excellent information about the core worlds. Director Kyung-suk Yang was perhaps the most important person in the alliance, though few people knew her name. She ran the intelligence division and, over the decades, had built a spy network that reached into every major civilization in the galaxy. The core worlds had a weakness they didn't know about. They only saw other species as subjects or rivals. They never considered that the lesser species they ignored might be watching them, learning from them, and reporting back to the Outer Reach Alliance. A small ship docked at the station, and Director Yang stepped out, accompanied by a group of beings from various species that the core worlds barely noticed. Her network included trade merchants, maintenance workers, diplomatic translators, and dozens of others who were present but invisible in the halls of galactic power. Madam President, Yang greeted Mi Young with a slight bow. I have the latest reports on the Vorthak Empire and the Kalani Federation. They moved to a secure conference room, where Yang spread out holographic displays showing detailed information about the core civilizations. The Vorthak are having internal problems, Yang explained. Their empire is too large and they can't manage all their territories effectively. They're starting to lose control of their outer colonies. And the Kalani? Mi Young asked. Completely focused on maintaining their technological superiority. They've become so specialized that they've forgotten how to adapt to new situations. Their society is rigid and predictable. Mi Young studied the information. The great civilizations that had exiled humanity were showing their age. They had grown comfortable with their power and had stopped innovating. What about the other council species? Admiral Shung Ho asked. Most are following the old patterns, Yang replied. They compete with each other constantly, but they never truly cooperate. Each species keeps their best technology secret from the others. They don't trust each other enough to work together effectively. This was humanity's greatest advantage. While the core species jealously guarded their secrets, the Outer Reach Alliance shared everything. A discovery made by Zerani scientists was immediately shared with human engineers and improved by Mokari technicians. Show them the new stealth technology, Yang said to one of her assistants, a quiet Zerani named Veltar. The alien activated a small device. Suddenly, the holographic display showed something impossible. A human ship had appeared right next to a Kalani research station without being detected. How did we get so close without their sensors spotting us? Mi Young asked. We learned that Kalani sensors are designed to detect the energy signatures of known ship types, Veltar explained. Our hybrid technology creates energy patterns they've never seen before. To their sensors, we're practically invisible. Mi Young felt a thrill of excitement. For 100 years, humanity had been building their strength in secret. They had assumed the core worlds were watching them, but the truth was even better. The core worlds had forgotten they existed. There's more, Yang continued. We've discovered that most of the galactic civilizations are completely dependent on automated systems. They've had peace for so long that they've forgotten how to fight a real war. Unlike us, Admiral Shung Ho said grimly. We've been fighting to survive every day for a century. Mi Young walked to the window and looked out at the busy spaceport. Ships from 30 different Alliance species were loading cargo, taking on passengers, and preparing for journeys across the outer spiral. The quantum tunnel network that Hewan Lim had discovered decades ago now connected thousands of worlds. How many ships do we have now? She asked. The complete fleet includes about 50,000 vessels, Shung Ho replied. But that's not counting the merchant ships, exploration vessels, and colony transports. If we needed to mobilize everything, we could probably field 100,000 ships, Yang laughed softly. The Kalani Federation has maybe 5,000 ships in their entire navy. The Vorthak Empire has more, but their ships are scattered across their territories and most are very old. And they still don't know we exist as a real force, Mi Young mused. To them, we're still the primitive species they exiled a century ago, Yang confirmed. Their records list humanity as extinct due to inability to adapt to harsh conditions and the other Alliance species as minor civilizations of no importance. Mi Young made a decision that would change the galaxy's future. It's time to change that, she said. We've spent 100 years learning and growing in secret. We've built the strongest alliance in galactic history. We've developed technology that surpasses anything the core worlds have. But what good is all that power if no one knows we exist? What are you proposing? Admiral Shung Ho asked. Nothing dramatic, just a little demonstration. The next time a core world ship ventures into our territory, let's make sure they see enough to take back an interesting report. Yang smiled. I believe there's a Kalani exploration vessel heading toward the Vega system next month. They're investigating reports of unusual energy readings in that region. Perfect, Mi Young said. Let's give them something really unusual to report back home. 3 weeks later, the Kalani exploration ship Bright Discovery dropped out of hyperspace in the Vega system, expecting to find nothing more than empty space and perhaps some natural phenomena creating the energy readings their long-range sensors had detected. Instead, they found a massive space station surrounded by dozens of ships unlike anything in their databases. The station was clearly artificial, but built with unfamiliar technology. The ships were sleek and advanced, but their design principles were completely unknown. Captain Zeldar, the Kalani commander, stared at his sensor readings in disbelief. Are those ships inhabited? Yes, sir, his sensor operator replied. I'm detecting life signs from at least 12 different species. Some of the patterns match species in our minor civilizations database, but others are completely unknown. And that station? It's enormous, sir, easily 3 times the size of our largest orbital platforms. The power output is impossible. Their energy generation exceeds anything in our records. Captain Zeldar made the same mistake countless other species had made over the millennia. He assumed that bigger meant more important and more advanced meant more threatening. Send a message to Fleet Command, he ordered. Priority 1. We may have discovered a previously unknown major civilization. The message reached the Kalani Federation within hours. From there, it spread to the other Council species. For the first time in 100 years, the galactic powers were forced to consider that something had changed in the universe. Something had been growing in the darkness of the outer spiral. Something they had completely failed to notice. The age of humanity's secret preparation was ending. The time for revelation was about to begin. Captain Daeho Kim stood before the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber. His hands shook slightly as he adjusted his uniform one last time. Behind those doors waited representatives from 12 different alien species, all more advanced than humanity. They would decide Earth's fate today. The doors opened with a deep hum. The chamber was enormous, with floating platforms arranged in a circle. Each platform held delegates from different worlds. Some looked like giant insects. Others resembled walking trees or living crystals. At the center sat the Vorthak Emperor, a being that looked like a cross between a dragon and a machine. Daeho walked to the small platform reserved for him. It felt tiny compared to the others. The other delegates barely looked at him. To them, humans were just another primitive species that had accidentally discovered space travel. Human representative, the Vorthak Emperor's voice boomed through the chamber. You have been summoned to hear our decision about your species. Daeho straightened his back. Thank you, Your Excellence. Humanity is honored by this opportunity. A Kalani delegate, tall and thin with silver skin, laughed coldly. Opportunity? You misunderstand, Primitive One. This is not an opportunity. This is a judgment. The Emperor raised one massive claw for silence. 3 cycles ago, your species made contact with our civilization. We have studied you. We have watched your behavior. We have seen your wars, your violence, your chaotic nature. Daeho's heart sank. He knew where this was going. You are young and reckless, continued a tree-like Silvani elder. Your kind fights among themselves constantly. You destroy your own environment. You cannot be trusted with galactic citizenship. But we can learn, Daeho protested. Give us a chance to prove ourselves. Humanity has great potential. We can contribute to galactic civilization. Contribute what? Sneered the Kalani delegate. You have no advanced technology. Your ships are crude metal boxes with primitive engines. Your weapons are barely more sophisticated than throwing rocks. Other delegates murmured in agreement. Daeho felt the weight of 8 billion lives on his shoulders. Everything his species had dreamed of was slipping away. We may not have your technology, Daeho said, his voice growing stronger. But we have something else. We have the ability to adapt. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. We have built civilizations from nothing. Given time and guidance, we could become valuable members of this council. The Vorthak Emperor's mechanical eyes glowed brighter. Time. You speak of time as if it belongs to you. Young species come and go like sparks in the void. Most destroy themselves within a few thousand years. Those who survive rarely amount to anything significant. The decision has been made, announced the Silvani elder. Humanity will be classified as a restricted primitive species. Your homeworld will be quarantined. No further contact with galactic civilization will be permitted. Daeho's blood ran cold. You can't do this. We have rights. We've done nothing wrong except be younger than you. Wrong? The Kalani delegate stood up, towering over the human platform. Your species is a threat to galactic peace. You wage war constantly. You cannot even unite your own planet. What makes you think you could function in a galaxy with thousands of civilized worlds? We can change, Deho pleaded. We can evolve. We can become better. Perhaps, said the Emperor, but not here. Not among civilized species. You will be relocated to the outer spiral, far from established trade routes and colonies. There you may develop as you will, without threatening the stability we have built over millions of years. The chamber filled with approving sounds from various delegates. Deho realized he was alone among beings who saw his entire species as nothing more than dangerous children. How long do we have? He asked quietly. 1 solar cycle, replied the Emperor. You will evacuate your homeworld completely. Any humans remaining after that time will be considered in violation of galactic law. Deho's mind raced. 1 year to evacuate 8 billion people? It seemed impossible, but he had to try. And if we refuse? The Emperor's mechanical laugh echoed through the chamber. You have seen our technology, human. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your defenses cannot stop our forces. Refuse, and your species will simply cease to exist. The meeting was over. The delegates were already turning away, discussing other matters as if humanity had never existed. Deho stood on his tiny platform feeling smaller than he ever had in his life. But as he walked back through those massive doors, something changed inside him. The fear was still there, but it was joined by something else. Anger, determination. They thought humans were weak because they were young. They would learn that being young meant being able to change, to grow, to become something new. Within hours of Deho's return to Earth, the evacuation began. Admiral So-Min Park took command of the operation. She had been preparing for this possibility since first contact. Every shipyard on Earth worked around the clock. Old cargo ships were converted to carry families. Military vessels were stripped down to make room for civilians. Chief Engineer Woo-Jin Lee coordinated the massive effort. His teams worked miracles, turning anything that could hold atmosphere into a spaceship. Luxury liners, research vessels, even old space stations were fitted with engines and life support systems. The hardest part was deciding what to take and what to leave behind. Dr. Yuri Choi led the committee that chose what pieces of human culture and knowledge would survive. The exile. Libraries were digitized, museums were emptied, seeds from every plant on Earth were carefully preserved. As the months passed, streams of ships left Earth carrying humanity to an unknown fate. Families said goodbye to the only world they had ever known. Children asked their parents when they would come home. The parents had no answer. On the final day, Admiral So-Min Park stood on the bridge of the last ship to leave Earth. Below them, the blue and green world that had given birth to humanity grew smaller and smaller. Where to, Admiral? Asked her navigation officer. So-Min looked at the star chart showing the outer spiral, that region of space the advanced species considered worthless. To our new beginning, she said. They think they're punishing us. They don't realize they're setting us free. As Earth disappeared behind them, Dr. Yuri Choi made a promise that would echo through the generations. They think we're weak because we're young. They'll learn that youth means we can adapt, and adaptation means survival. The Great Exile had begun. Humanity was heading into the unknown, carrying nothing but their determination and their dreams of proving the galaxy wrong. Captain Deho Kim stood before the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber. His hands shook slightly as he adjusted his uniform one last time. Behind those doors waited representatives from 12 different alien species, all more advanced than humanity. They would decide Earth's fate today. The doors opened with a deep hum. The chamber was enormous, with floating platforms arranged in a circle. Each platform held delegates from different worlds. Some looked like giant insects. Others resembled walking trees or living crystals. At the center sat the Vorthak Emperor, a being that looked like a cross between a dragon and a machine. Deho walked to the small platform reserved for him. It felt tiny compared to the others. The other delegates barely looked at him. To them, humans were just another primitive species that had accidentally discovered space travel. Human representative. The Vorthak Emperor's voice boomed through the chamber. "You have been summoned to hear our decision about your species." Deho straightened his back. "Thank you, Your Excellence. Humanity is honored by this opportunity." A Kalani delegate, tall and thin with silver skin, laughed coldly. "Opportunity? You misunderstand, Primitive One. This is not an opportunity. This is a judgment." The Emperor raised one massive claw for silence. 3 cycles ago, your species made contact with our civilization. We have studied you. We have watched your behavior. We have seen your wars, your violence, your chaotic nature. Deho's heart sank. He knew where this was going. "You are young and reckless," continued a tree-like Silvani elder. "Your kind fights among themselves constantly. You destroy your own environment. You cannot be trusted with galactic citizenship." "But we can learn," Deho protested. "Give us a chance to prove ourselves. Humanity has great potential. We can contribute to galactic civilization." "Contribute what?" sneered the Kalani delegate. "You have no advanced technology. Your ships are crude metal boxes with primitive engines. Your weapons are barely more sophisticated than throwing rocks." Other delegates murmured in agreement. Deho felt the weight of 8 billion lives on his shoulders. Everything his species had dreamed of was slipping away. "We may not have your technology," Deho said, his voice growing stronger. "But we have something else. We have the ability to adapt. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. We have built civilizations from nothing. Given time and guidance, we could become valuable members of this council." The Vorthak Emperor's mechanical eyes glowed brighter. "Time? You speak of time as if it belongs to you. Young species come and go like sparks in the void. Most destroy themselves within a few thousand years. Those who survive rarely amount to anything significant." "The decision has been made," announced the Silvani elder. "Humanity will be classified as a restricted primitive species. Your homeworld will be quarantined. No further contact with galactic civilization will be permitted." Deho's blood ran cold. "You can't do this. We have rights. We've done nothing wrong except be younger than you." "Wrong?" The Kalani delegate stood up, towering over the human platform. "Your species is a threat to galactic peace. You wage war constantly. You cannot even unite your own planet. What makes you think you could function in a galaxy with thousands of civilized worlds?" "We can change," Deho pleaded. "We can evolve. We can become better." "Perhaps," said the Emperor. "But not here. Not among civilized species. You will be relocated to the outer spiral, far from established trade routes and colonies. There you may develop as you will, without threatening the stability we have built over millions of years." The chamber filled with approving sounds from various delegates. Deho realized he was alone among beings who saw his entire species as nothing more than dangerous children. "How long do we have?" he asked quietly. "1 solar cycle," replied the Emperor. "You will evacuate your homeworld completely. Any humans remaining after that time will be considered in violation of galactic law." Deho's mind raced. 1 year to evacuate 8 billion people. It seemed impossible, but he had to try. "And if we refuse?" The Emperor's mechanical laugh echoed through the chamber. "You have seen our technology, human. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your defenses cannot stop our forces. Refuse, and your species will simply cease to exist." The meeting was over. The delegates were already turning away, discussing other matters as if humanity had never existed. Deho stood on his tiny platform, feeling smaller than he ever had in his life. But as he walked back through those massive doors, something changed inside him. The fear was still there, but it was joined by something else. Anger, determination. They thought humans were weak because they were young. They would learn that being young meant being able to change, to grow, to become something new. Within hours of Deho's return to Earth, the evacuation began. Admiral Somin Park took command of the operation. She had been preparing for this possibility since first contact. Every shipyard on Earth worked around the clock. Old cargo ships were converted to carry families. Military vessels were stripped down to make room for civilians. Chief Engineer Woo-Jin Lee coordinated the massive effort. His teams worked miracles, turning anything that could hold atmosphere into a spaceship. Luxury liners, research vessels, even old space stations were fitted with engines and life support systems. The hardest part was deciding what to take and what to leave behind. Dr. Yuri Choi led the committee that chose what pieces of human culture and knowledge would survive. The exile. Libraries were digitized, museums were emptied, seeds from every plant on Earth were carefully preserved. As the months passed, streams of ships left Earth carrying humanity to an unknown fate. Families said goodbye to the only world they had ever known. Children asked their parents when they would come home. The parents had no answer. On the final day, Admiral So-Min Park stood on the bridge of the last ship to leave Earth. Below them, the blue and green world that had given birth to humanity grew smaller and smaller. "Where to, Admiral?" asked her navigation officer. So-Min looked at the star charts showing the outer spiral, that region of space the advanced species considered worthless. "To our new beginning," she said. "They think they're punishing us. They don't realize they're setting us free." As Earth disappeared behind them, Dr. Yuri Choi made a promise that would echo through the generations. "They think we're weak because we're young. They'll learn that youth means we can adapt, and adaptation means survival." The Great Exile had begun. Humanity was heading into the unknown, carrying nothing but their determination and their dreams of proving the galaxy wrong.